Hey there, Instagram. Welcome to day number 4 of the 10 days of money momentum. So here's the deal. wanted to jump in here just live, just to start a bit live, just to let people come on. And yesterday we had an issue on the Facebook side. It wasn't streaming. So we're going to make sure that we're streaming and everything is running right before we get rocking and rolling today. As you're coming in, do me a favor, let me know where you're coming in from. Say hello. Looks like we are live on Facebook too. So this is good. Day number 4. This has been, I don't know about you, but it certainly has been fun for me to be able to do these things and have fun and actually make a difference. I mean, I'm seeing the comments, I'm reading the comments. I got some responding to do to some of the comments. I'm going to respond to all the comments myself. So do me a favor, make sure that you're commenting, make sure that you're saying hello, and Enrod 0319 is in the house. So good to have you again. Don't think I don't see you over and over again. And Facebook, we're going to be starting here in just a few seconds here. So here's the deal. I'd love to hear from you about, at least in the first 3 days, if you've done the exercise the first 3 days, what's the biggest takeaway that you've had in these first 3 days? And let me know. Let me know in the comments here and in the chat and all of that. So let me get us moving on Facebook too, and let's start this thing. Day number 4 coming right to you from here in my office in Laguna Beach. All right, so here we go. We're going live in 5. You get to see the countdown for Facebook. 5, 4, 3, 2, and we're live. All right. So let's get this thing started. This is day number 4 of Money Momentum. Out of the 10 days, we're on day number 4. So let's just kind of recap real quickly. As you're coming in, do me a favor. Say hello. Say hello. Yesterday, I guess it didn't feed to Facebook, so I don't know what the heck happened. But I felt like Facebook didn't love me because no one was there, it seemed like. So here's the deal. But it wasn't that. It was a technical issue. Here's the deal. What I'd love to hear from you is just say hello. Let me know what your biggest takeaway has been so far. If you've done all the exercises for the first 3 days, we're on day number 4. We're going to start getting into some things. Laurie is in the house again. All right. Got your notes, Laurie. And I'm gonna respond to them. And Kit is in the house too. So this is awesome. So day number 4, we're talking about your most important investment. And I know that this is kind of a you're sitting back thinking that we're gonna talk about investments, we're gonna talk about stocks, we're gonna talk about bonds, we're gonna talk about ETFs and index funds. That time will come. That time will come, but it's not today. It's not today because I think there's a more important investment for y'all to think about, because when we start to look at our investments, when we start looking at about our wealth, our net worth, our financial independence, our financial liberation to become an affluent entrepreneur, there's something that precedes this. Remember I said that very few people have actually money issues. They have behavior issues. See, when we have behavior issues, well, think about this. We interpret the behavior issue is a money issue, but the money issue is the symptom of the behavior issue. But here's the interesting thing. The behavior issue is a symptom of the thinking issue. So everything starts here. Everything starts here. And so when we start to talk about the best place we can invest, okay, the best place we can invest and the best investment, it's really the ripple effect of swimming upstream and making sure that we take care of this so it takes care of our behaviors, which ultimately takes care of the money and the wealth, all right? If that's making sense to you, let me know. Let me know. So, because I think that's really where I want to play. I'm going to walk you through another framework that I use to try and describe this. But I think that's really where I want us to play today. And if you have questions and all that, stay with me. We'll make sure that we get to some of the questions towards the end here. And I saw a question, which is a great question, that was sent to me in a DM on Instagram. So I'm going to try to answer that. It's a financial question, maybe not about our topic today, but I think it's important to answer and to give this person some guidance and everything. So I look forward to it. So here's the deal. Today the prompt was are you spending your time or investing it? Your greatest investment is your time. And here's what we need to understand is that when we talk about time is an investment that we make, how we use it, but it's also an asset we have. But here's why this asset is so valuable. It's so valuable and we take it for granted. It's so valuable because we have a limited amount of it. It's the one place that you, Kathy, Barbara, Laurie, Kit, Rachel, all of you, it's the one place that y'all are as wealthy as Warren Buffett. I almost said Jimmy Buffett. Jimmy's pretty wealthy too, okay? But it's the one place that you're as wealthy. You have the same number of hours in a day. You have the same number of hours. The only thing that we don't know is how many days we have. Point being is this. Is the question is, are you spending those days? Are you spending that time or are you investing that time? Because if that's the most important asset, in other words, it's the one asset that's the one wasting asset, that once it's gone, we can never get it back. Listen, I can lose money and I have. I can make it back and I did. But when I lose time, I never take it back. I never make it back. I can't add more time at the end of my life. I can't add more time today. It is what we have. And so time is the greatest investment. So the question is, how are you using time? We're going to talk about the value of your time. We're going to talk about how time works when it comes to wealth. We're going to talk about what are the things that we ought to be doing with our time to increase, one, the probability of becoming financially independent, financially liberated. Not only the probability of it, the acceleration of it, and the celebration of it. So I hope that we start to understand where all of this starts to come from. Because, at some point we'll talk about investments like stocks and bonds and ETFs and real estate and alternative investments and cryptos and all those things. But here's the challenge. I tell all the people that I work with, whether an affluence blueprint or whether I'm working with them as one-on-one mentoring clients, that we never, ever, ever, never do we invest in something we do not understand. Which means that any investment we're going to make starts here. Starts with giving it time. To give it the time so we can learn and understand it. Because we need to make a decision from an informed place. When we're making a decision from an informed place, then we can't get blindsided. We can get blindsided because I did, but there's less likelihood of us getting blindsided in the process. So understand that first off, time is an investment and it's an asset. And when you use them effectively, it can be the accelerator to your wealth building. Now, let me kind of walk you through a bit of a framework and how this can play out. Because here's what we do typically when it comes down to doing some of these things, is that we actually start our working world, whether we're an employee, whether we're an entrepreneur, we actually start in a situation where what we're doing is we're trading time for money. Okay? And if you think about it in this construct of like a loop-de-loop, okay? And there's this loop. So we start on this treadmill of swapping time for money. And so and it circles around it and starts to move out. Here's the challenge. There's those out there that never move away from the time for money type of model. And if we don't move away from the time for money type of model, the only way to start to build wealth is to run around that circle faster, more often, harder, all that type of stuff. But there's breakdown, there's burnout when we do that. This is what I call the treadmill entrepreneur. And so what ends up happening is that we start to transition, and I talk about a framework called the 5 incomes. But when we start to look at things, now some of you may maybe coaches out there, you may be professionals out there, like I am a CPA. We grew up with this whole time for money kind of paradigm. What's your billable rate? What's your hourly rate? We're going to talk about the value of your hours. But when you look at that, this is a really bad model because you can't scale it. You can scale it a little bit, but when we're swapping hours for dollars, there's two things that are happening. One, we're simply selling a mathematical equation to the world. And the only way that we can build wealth, the only way that we can generate additional income is to try to tweak that mathematical equation. But that's a challenge. Us CPAs, we ought to know better as CPAs, but we don't. It's the worst business model. The timesheet was invented in 1919. It should have been burned at the stake in 1920. And so we start off with this time for money paradigm. And then what ends up happening is we move from a time for money paradigm and we start to go into another loop. And that other loop is where we start to get money for time. Okay? And what do I mean by that? That means that what ends up happening is we actually use money to buy back some of our time. In other words, I'm going to bring on team, and that team is going to give me time back. Or I have the ability of profits to allow me to leverage and say, I'm only working 4 days a week. I'm only working 3 days a week. So we start off in a time for money paradigm. We will shift, okay, if we do it intentionally, okay, because there's a lot of people that never get out of this paradigm. We intentionally shift and say, I need to consciously, intentionally move from this element of swapping time for money to flipping it and saying, how do I use my money to give me my time back? But see, that's not where we end. Because the place where your wealth is built, the place where your liberation is, the place where your financial independence is at this next level, where we start to move beyond this into the third loop. And that third loop is when we end up having money for money. Okay? This is when we turn around and we actually end up building a financial machine that creates money for us. This is what allowed me to sit back when I got caught with the cancer 2 years ago and I pulled myself out of the business. Is that it's what allowed me to have to fight the cancer, have to physically, I had to fight it emotionally, I had to fight it medically, I had to fight it on all fronts, psychologically, energetically, spiritually, all of it. But the place I didn't have to fight it was financially. And the reason for it is because I had my money working harder for me than I did for it. Okay, let me say that again. I had my money working harder for me than I did for it. That's what I want for you. Is so what we need to do is if you're building your business, that we need to take that business and use that business to scale the business so we can scale the money and get the money to work harder for you than you did for it. Because until we do, we're going to be in one of those other loops, either the time for money loop or the money for time loop. But your true liberation is when we transcend both and we have money for money. Hopefully that's making sense. We need to optimize our profits. We need to carve off a portion to build a financial machine that's going to generate cash flow to give you the flexibility, the liberation, the affluence that you're looking for. And so this is the thing that we need to look at. And that's the paradigm in which I look at businesses and say, how can we take a business? How can we take a business and create the efficiency and the profitability in a way that you as the owner can take a piece of it and use it to build a machine that allows you to live without effort. Here's the key. Here's one of the keys, is to realize that at some point we need to figure out a way where the outputs, the rewards we get, far exceed the inputs, the effort we put in. The rewards we get need to far exceed the inputs that we put in. Now, you're going to be putting in inputs for a while to build it, but once it's done, it's a perpetual money machine. It's an ATM when it's done right. Okay, when it's done right. This is really one of the primary focus of how we do this in Affluence Blueprint. It's what I want to spend my time in the show on, the Affluent Entrepreneur Show, is to understand that. But let's start to look at this, is that I see it often where people don't value their time. They don't understand the value of their time. They don't track their time. So I'm going to give you a couple of other exercises. We're going to do some things here. I'm going to do a little bit of math, but trust me, I'm doing the math for you. All right. If this is making sense to you, do me a favor. Let me know, because I think this is important. If we start to understand what we are valuing our time at, or what we should value our time at, then maybe we would be more discerning with the things we do, the choices we make, the decisions as to what we're going to take on as a project. Okay, I was just having a coaching call with one of my one-on-one clients, and we were talking about how to price things. There's a couple things here, because this is a question that comes up. How do I price my? She happens to be a corporate consultant, a corporate coach, executive coach. And she says, how do I price it? And I said, that's actually the wrong question to ask. The better question to ask is, what's the value of the transformation of the results you give? What's the value of the transformation of the results you give? Because when we price things, we typically price things from a place of, what does it cost me? And too often, as individuals, I'm making a general statement here, but as individuals, too often we undervalue our value. Too often we undervalue our value. It's time to stop. If time is your most valuable asset, it's the most important investment you've got, heck no more undervaluing it. All right? No more undervaluing it. We got to value it at where it needs to be or above. And if you sit back and say to someone, saying, if I hear you say, I want you to charge $1,000 an hour, and you sit back and say, I can't charge $1,000 an hour, what's causing you to say that? What's causing you to say that? Because other people aren't charging $1,000 an hour? Why? Maybe we should ask a different question. Maybe the question we should ask is this: if I wanted to charge $1,000 an hour, what would the delivery look like to make it feel like $10,000 worth of value? And now we charge $1,000 an hour. Now we come back at it from the transformation of value standpoint. Hopefully this is landing for you. So here's how I look at this at the very base level. When I start to look at and say, how are you valuing your time? How are you valuing your time? There's two inputs to it. So the first thing I want you to do, and if you have a piece of paper handy, you can walk this with me, and then do this with me, and you might change the numbers and that type of thing. But the first thing I want you to do is ask yourself, how much do you want to make in the next 12 months? How much do you want to make in the next 12 months? Okay, let's as an example, I'm just going to use as an example $250,000. So let's just say that you want to make $250,000 in the next 12 months. Okay, so you figure out how much you want to make. Now, here's where the bigger math comes in. The second question we got to ask is, how much do you want to work? How much do you want to work this year in the next 12 months? Here's how you calculate it, okay? I want you to come up with how many hours per day do you want to work, okay? How many days per week do you want to work? How many weeks per year, okay? So hours in the day, days in the week, weeks per year. Hours in the day, days per week, weeks per year. So let's just put some numbers to it. And I know, and you'll be able to watch the replay and go through it and slow it down and that type of thing. And if you're on Facebook, you can see the calculations. But here's the thing. Let's assume, for argument's sake, that I want to work, 6 hours a day. 6 hours a day. I need long lunches. I don't know. Okay? I want to work 6 hours a day. And I want to work 4 days a week because I want 3-day weekends. And I want to take at least 1 month off a year. So I'm only going to work 48 weeks per year. So if I'm going to work 6 hours a day, 4 days a week, 48 weeks per year, I multiply the hours per day times the days per week times the weeks per year, and it gives me a total amount of hours worked of 1,152 hours. 1,152 hours worked. Now, I want to make $250,000, and I want to work only 1,152 hours. Most people will do the math and then try to come up with their rate. We don't stop there. I think it's a mistake. Realize that if I'm going to use 1,152 hours, if that's what I'm going to do, there's also those hours that I'm going to use for business development. There's also those hours that I'm going to use for operations. There's also those hours I'm going to use for non-revenue generating activities. So what I need to do is say, well, all 1,152 hours they're not going to generate revenue. So I need to subtract the amount of non-revenue hours out. So let's just assume that 25% of those hours, the 1,100 hours, are for operations, business development, and that type of thing. Hopefully you're with me, okay? That means that 288 hours is not there for me to earn anything from. So I have 1,100 total hours, 1,152 total hours, minus 288 hours. That gives me 864 hours. That means to make my $250,000, I need to do it in 864 hours. Okay? If I'm going to make it in 864 hours, then I take the 250,000, say $250,000 divided by 864 hours means that each hour is worth about $298, I believe is the math. Okay, $298. Okay, so $290, $300. Here's what that means. That if you're getting paid, or you're going to quote something at something less than, let's round up, $300 an hour, you're not the only way you're going to get to $250,000 that year is to either work more hours or find some project that makes it happen. Hey there, Rachel. So good to have you. So the bottom line is that we need to do the math, because what we need to look at is that there's dollar productivity per hour that you're using. If time is your most important asset, and it's the most valuable asset, it's the most fungible asset, in other words, it goes away and it's limited, Why are we misvaluing it? So now I want you to look at this and say, here's why this is important. One, we need to value the time that we're using and how we're using it, how we're valuing it. So I won't take on projects if it doesn't make sense. I'll quote things, and remember I said I talked to one of my one-on-one clients today, and we were having the conversation. I said, let me ask a different question. Because she was afraid to, she was a little leery about pricing herself up too high. And I said, you actually should be more concerned about pricing yourself down too low. Can you imagine what it's like where you sit back and say, hey, I wanted to charge this person, I don't know, $4,000 a month. But you reluctant to do it because, and the only reason you're reluctant to do it is, and this may be hit you wrong, but I'm going to say it anyways, is that the only reason you're reluctant to do it is because you don't trust the value you bring. And if you don't trust the value you bring, let's boost the value. Let's make sure you step into it with conviction and you bring the value so it's worth much more than $4,000 an hour, so you have no qualms about going, yeah, it's $4,000 for a month. But here's the thing that I think is important. I said, if you're uncomfortable doing it at $4,000 and you decide that you're gonna quote $2,500, so you quote it at $2,500 and they accept, and you sit back and go, and I say, how do you feel? Because if you feel at that and you go, damn it, now you dread it because you accepted it at such a low price, low value for you, then there's something there, okay? Then there's something there. When I put a project price or anything out on the table, there's conviction with what it is, but there's indifference with what their decision is. And I don't mean that I don't want them as a client. What I want them for, I want them to make sure, here's my job is not to sell. My job is to inform. My job is to make sure they have all the data, all the information to make sure that they make the right decision for them. And that decision might be to work with me. That decision may be to work with you. That may be a decision not to work at all and stay on the same path. As long as they were fully informed of the decision, I did my job. I'm not there to convince them. I'm there to stand in the conviction and own the value that I have and put it forward. All right. So that's the value of time. Now there's another piece of this. If time is so valuable, then what we need to then ask ourselves is, how are you investing your time? Because it's one thing to sell your time. It's a whole nother game to sit back and say, am I investing my time for my growth? Am I investing my time to become better? Am I investing my time to become wealthier? Am I investing my time? Not spending it. Spending it is sitting and watching Netflix. Now, sometimes we just need that. The problem, just like any other investment, the problem is when we don't do it intentionally. I am totally cool with you to sit back. In fact, my wife and I, we just finished the whole thing of the series of Suits, and we had never seen it before. So, we watched a little bit every night. So we intentionally watch things that we choose to do our time in an intentional way. The question is, are you doing that, or are you just along for the ride? Because someone says, here's what you do with your time. The idea here is this. What I'm going to ask you to do for the next 7 days, is I want you to track your time. Just log it. And I want you to track it in 4 categories. 4 categories. The first category is going to be revenue generating activities. So that could be sales conversations, that could be coaching, that could be consulting, that could be whatever you're doing that is a direct line to generating revenues I want you to track that number of hours. Okay? So the first thing is revenue generating activities. Number two, okay? Number two is to track, track personal. So you might take, personal time to go to the gym, to take, to go and take an exercise class, or the hours you sleep. All of those hours that are personal, we want to track those. Number three. So we're tracking revenue generating, we're tracking personal. Number three, I want you to track your growth hours. The time you spend in personal, professional growth activities. Now, let me be clear. When you go down that rabbit hole of YouTube or Facebook, if it is not with an intent to learn a specific thing, to grow your knowledge, your wisdom, your expertise, that's not a growth activity. That's a black hole. Okay? So, I want you to be intentional about it. And the beautiful thing about me being a CPA is I'm actually required to take continuing ed. Someone like Rachel, who's an attorney, she's required to take continuing ed. So we're forced to do growth activities. Now, some of them are really boring growth activities. But what I'm saying is that every single one of us, if we truly want to build our wealth, if we truly want to understand investing in money and financial independence, part of those growth activities must be growing, using the time to grow your knowledge, because your ability to build wealth, to become financially independent, financially liberated, to live an affluent lifestyle is going to be based upon three things: your mindset, your skill set, and your network. Your mindset, your skill set, and your network, which means that your growth activities, when it comes to the money side of your world, your business side, your growth activities need to boost your mindset, your skill set, or your network. And when you start to do that, you start to grow your knowledge. Because remember, at the very beginning, I said we do not invest in things we do not understand. Well, guess what? If you want to invest in Airbnbs, like my dear friend James Wedmore, we had a conversation about leveraging his time. He loves real estate, so he went and he invested in his growth. He took programs, he read, he learned, he built. He's got a bunch of Airbnbs. He talks about it, so I'm not disclosing any information. But he's acquired $2.9 million. We had this conversation a little over 12 months ago. $2.9 million in real estate that's going to generate $40,000 a month in cash flow. But he did not do it, and he wouldn't, and I wouldn't let him do it as a friend and as an advisor. I would not let him do it without upping his mindset and his skill set, and even his network, because he's got people helping him. So the question is, when it comes to investing your time, are you spending? Do you have a specific intentional allocation of time for your professional and personal growth that's going to allow you to scale your income, scale your cash flow, scale your investment and money, financial knowledge? Because until you do, you're not going to hit the financial independence that you want, because it's not going to be done without you expanding your comfort zone, without expanding your knowledge zone. Okay? That's why I look at this and say, time is the most important investment that you have. It's the most limited. It can't be replaced. Yet we take it for granted, we undervalue it, and we don't use it effectively. And when you decide to take control of your time, things will shift. Here's the thing. It doesn't matter the dollars in the bank. It doesn't matter whether you're worth $100, $1,000, $1 million, $10 million, $100 million. If you are not in control of your time, you're still living in poverty, in my book. So I hope that that makes sense. I hope that you start to see that in a way, in the way it's meant. So I want you to go through the exercise of over the next 7 days to just look at how you're spending your time. Is it on revenue generating activities? Is it on personal activities? Is it on growth activities? And one more, is it on non-revenue generating activities? In other words, is it operations for the business? Is it team meetings that aren't directly related to things? So what'll happen is you'll have 7 days, 24 hours a day where you're allocating the time and you're going, wow, I didn't spend much time in growth activities. Do you know that every single day I wake up, usually between 4:30 and 5, sometimes earlier, but my wife does not wake up till 6. That gives me a good 90 minutes to do reading, to do listening, to do writing, to do thinking. All of my growth activities in my world, most of them are done in the morning before anyone gets up. Then I'll shift to revenue generating activities. So the point of this whole exercise is that you create a system and a process to make sure that you know exactly where your time's going. It's intentional, and you're methodically growing your knowledge base. And if we're talking about money, in wealth and money and financial independence concepts and that type of thing. So I know I owe you guys my book list. So I will post that I'll post it in the Facebook group. So if you're on Instagram, get into my Facebook group too. So I'll post it in my Facebook group because I have it. And you'll see that these are some of my favorite business books, my favorite investing books, my favorite money mindset books. Okay? And I'll make sure that you have that. But even if it's just reading, you can decide to do it at night. You can decide, but I think that we need to have at least some level of dedicated growth activity each and every day. I don't care if it's 30 minutes. I don't care if it's 20 minutes. But do it methodically. If I do 20 minutes a day for 5 days a week, it's 100 minutes. Think about what that happens over the life of a year. You make a lot of growth. Now you understand a whole lot more. You've expanded your comfort zones. Your blind spots have shrunk down. Your ability to make right decisions move forward. And that starts to tackle the fears we talked about in the last video. Because a lot of fears are based on misknowledge or not knowing something. So let's learn it, okay? Ask questions. Who do you need to be around? So remember, it's about mindset, skill set, or network. So who do you have to be around to make that happen? So that's what I wanted to cover today. I want you to value your time. I want you to use your time effectively, invest it effectively. When you do this properly, I promise you it'll accelerate your financial independence. It will accelerate your ability to take control. It'll fundamentally, cement you into a place where you feel confident, just like I said with Mark Bailey in the last session, where I said, once he had the knowledge, he had the principles, he had the tools and the tactics, he knew, and he was confident to move forward. So let's get that for you. So I hope this helps. I hope this helps you out and you found value in it. I'm going to answer some questions, but before we go, remember, I got nothing to sell. This is all about promoting the Affluent Entrepreneur Show. Coming out the week of May 3rd, we're going to talk deeper about some of these things. We're going to bring on some guests. We're going to do some questions, Q&A shows, and coaching shows. I'm going to do all of that. So I want to make sure that you guys are there. And for those of you that are doing the exercises and commenting below the post. So every morning I'm posting at 8 a.m. and then I'm going live at 4, except for tomorrow. I'll explain that in a second. Except for tomorrow. So then I go live. But under the post, you have a prompt, you have an exercise. I want you to post your comments there. Everyone that's posting comments throughout the 10 days, you're getting an entry into the giveaway. At the end of our time together, I'm going to do a giveaway. We're going to give away things like Apple Pencils. We're going to give away Amazon gift cards. We're going to give away my #1 national best-selling book, Barnes & Noble USA Today bestseller. I'm going to take a stack of some of my favorite books. I'm going to give those away as a bundle. And the grand prize is going to be a one-on-one strategy session with me. So make sure that you're doing that. If there are people that need to hear this, let's share this out. Let's get it out to them, and let's shift and change directions for them too. So with that, let me go to questions. Let's see if we've got questions on any of this, and I'll make sure that I answer them as best I can. Which activity? Kit says, which activity is networking or interacting with people in my niche? When we talk about it, a networking activity is part of the business development. It can be if we're seeing that it's directly related to tied to revenue generation, then it's a revenue generating activity. If it's not, it's going to be a non-revenue generating activity. So let me give you an example. In fact, this was the reason that one of the reasons that my partnership broke up with my partners back in the 90s. I was traveling around the country speaking on valuations and litigation from a financial expert standpoint and that type of thing. And I was due to speak in Arkansas. And I was due to speak in Arkansas in front of 350 attorneys. Now, these are people that didn't do what I did, but they needed what I did. But my partners, traditional accountants, didn't see the value in me flying to Arkansas on my time to go speak. But I went and did it anyways. See, I saw my speaking as a revenue generating activity, especially when I was speaking in front of people that needed what I had. And in fact, that same Arkansas conference that I keynoted at, I spoke there. I got off the plane back in Los Angeles, and by the time I got off the plane in Los Angeles, an attorney that was sitting in that audience turned around and had called me. I had a message from him when I landed saying, "Hey, can you come back out to Arkansas? Because I think I need your help." And I landed well into the 5-figure job that actually turned into a decade of work for me. Every year they brought me back and other clients in Arkansas. So the question is can I directly tie it to generating revenue? So that's a great question. Other questions. I have one question that came in on the DMs. Let me see if I can pull it up and if I can find it. No, it came in on my Facebook. So if you have other questions, let me know. But I'll pull this up. I want to make sure that I term it right. Because there's a couple. She threw a lot of things in this as we go through it. But bottom line is that let me see if it comes up. And then and if you have questions also, just let me know. Here it is. No, I don't see it. Well, I'm gonna have to answer it. What I'm gonna do, I'll have to answer it another way. But bottom line is, here's the question. I'll paraphrase it. She has $20,000 on credit cards right now that she's trying to pay off. Okay, and she doesn't have a ton of excess cash. She's trying to get it all paid off. She wants to do her launches. She wants to run her business, and she's concerned about, I got to run my credit cards up to hopefully make money to pay for the Facebook ads. Okay? Now, the term, there's a couple things that are going on there. One is, I think that we need to be really careful to understand that not all expenses are created equal. The idea here is that if I'm going to make an investment in an ad, in a Facebook ad, and I make $1 investment, I should be getting a multiple of that back. I should be getting $1.50, $2, $3, $4, whatever it is. If I'm not, then we got to stop the ads. Now, the thing that concerned me is I don't know enough about her financial situation. I don't know if she's got an emergency. She had $20,000 in cash set aside. She doesn't want to use it to pay off the debt, which I understand and I agree. Let's keep the liquidity. I don't know the interest rates on the credit cards. I don't know if she's on a payment plan. But I would put her, if any of you have debt, I want you to go to, you can go to melabraham.com/no debt. You can get my debt breakthrough calculator for free. It'll spread out all the payments to get you to either minimize the time or minimize the interest that you pay to get it paid off, get on a plan. But what worried me more than anything else is that she said to make investments in Facebook ads on a credit card and hope. And that word hope concerns me because hope is never a good financial strategy. So my question would have been, have you proven out the launch strategy? And if you haven't proven out the launch strategy, we need to test it and test it in a way that we're not going to put a ton of money on a credit card. I did a launch recently where I did an internal launch and I said, how much am I willing to pay? What's my revenue goal in earnings per lead? What's my cost per lead? And I managed to that. And I know what my cap is, so I know what my absolute bottom line worst case scenario is. But we need to test some things first. And so I'll go deeper with her when I get a chance. But that's the gist of the question. I think it was a great question. So hopefully that helps. Any other questions before we finish up for the day? All right. Tomorrow's day number 5. All right. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, I usually do these at 4, but tomorrow we're going 1 hour later. We're going to go at 5 p.m. Only because I screwed up on my calendar, and I got to be honest with you. I screwed up on my calendar. I can't be available at 4, and I can't move it. So 5 p.m. tomorrow is our live. But 8 a.m., I'm going to post the new prompt for tomorrow, the exercise. Make sure you're commenting. Make sure you're sharing. Let me know if you've got questions. DM me, and let's make sure that I help you out in this process, where tomorrow is the halfway point. And then I'll see you all here live at 5. I like that, live at 5. All right. Thank you for all being here. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the kind comments that keep coming in. And like I've said every single time, you all are a blessing to me. This is my happy place to serve and to have conversations with you. This brings joy to me. This is my healing. So thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow and talking some more. All right. Cheers.